guys. We made it through the month of August. Kyle, regrettably, you did not make a dramatic comeback in the final 2 days, so that is
No.
most unfortunate. But the rest of us live to fight another day, I guess. Any month we don't get last is good, but anyone
we all
make any
did
moves in the
manage to
first
go
week?
well, right?
Obviously, markets are closed for Labor Day tomorrow.
No, they are closed for the holiday
They
or
are
whatever.
closed for the holiday. But
I
Kyle, you and I
haven't
were not
made.
far off. We were only like 0.7%. I had second and you had third, so
Nice.
Yeah.
not bad. No
I
changes
mean, I
though.
think everyone did. I think everyone did fairly well,
Last
right?
month was a good month.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
I haven't made any moves, but I have been trying to figure out what to do with Tesla right now. To be honest, because like it's been cratering for a while. I feel like, and then it's on like a slight upswing right now. I'm trying to figure out if it stays here, keeps going up, or if this is just a very temporary bounce generated by the thought of Tesla robots, I guess, or something unrelated. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
and
at what point do you just cut the losses and run so that
yeah,
it can't
because
get
like
worse?
it's definitely become my heaviest non cryptocurrency
Yep.
related purchase. So I mean like just like what should I do with that is what I've been thinking about. So it's not really a move I've made, but a move I've considered, I guess.
It could be though. Yes, it could be. Kyle, anything on your radar?
I mean, yeah, also, I haven't made any moves either, but considering getting out of Callaway, but
Already.
it's also, I mean, it was doing pretty well at one point, but then now it's sitting at an all-time negative 14, and it's like,
Okay. Yeah.
And then with the like summer kind of ending soon, or I guess maybe very soon. I don't know that Callaway is really going to continue to trend upwards. Probably just going to like, I don't know. That's probably what everyone else is doing too. That's probably why it's going down, right?
You should use some Callaway equipment while you're golfing today if it fails. Just be like, no, fuck that. Fuck that.
I think so. The only Callaway piece that I have is like an iron that was sitting that someone like threw into my parents' front yard, like just left it
Nice.
there. It's like a 9 iron.
Free iron.
Yeah,
Free
A
9 iron.
random 9-iron.
yeah. It's not bad, but I prefer mine better. So
Yeah.
it's a loner club.
I see.
The lawn club.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
only got the driver now. I used to have some wedges, but
Was there
it's
a
all
line
that's
like
left.
is it the Mac Daddy or something?
Yes, the Mac
Yeah.
Daddy Jaws wedges were
Yeah.
wildly popular with
Yeah.
regular hacks like me and the people on TV. You could spin those things, dude. It was unbelievable. They lasted forever too.
Nice.
I think that would be the most important to me. Like, how durable is this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get mad.
They say you're supposed to replace your wedges every 1 to 2 seasons, but I feel like for the average person, it's like 3 to 5.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
because like the pros are playing like
$120 to $180 a club every season. That's like
Mhm.
for a normal person, they're just not going to do that. Like
Yeah, it's just like no.
if you play 10 rounds a year and they're all in the
Yeah,
summer,
I think-
and then you just randomly
yeah.
hit the range in the winter, like you're not wearing them out that quickly.
Yeah, part of it I think is the use factor. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Every season or two is that assuming I play golf twice a week, once a week, more often than twice a week. Do I have to play every day for that to be true? Like,
Mhm.
that's not my lifestyle. So it's not gonna happen like that.
Okay, so already eyeing a move out of that. Something
Yeah,
to
I
keep
think
an
so.
eye on.
But other than that, nothing really for me. Everything else all time is like acceptable or nothing that
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta tell you, I'm keeping an eye on whether or not Bitcoin can sustain anything above 50,000. So
Oh yeah, that is. But we've already all bought in, so at that point we're just kind of just like. If it
yes,
goes up,
but
we'll be
if
happy in.
if it can hold on above 50 versus if it drops off again, there introduces a potential that one or more of us sells it off and tries to day trade the dip again.
Yeah.
So
I see.
that's the only reason I bring it up. But hypothetical, of course, at this point. But speaking of games, this has nothing to do with golf, but our first topic is that Facebook wants to get into fantasy games.
Fantasy football. And fantasy sports.
Not necessarily football.
But fantasy sports? Or like, not like fantasy, like Lord of the Rings fantasy. That's not what I
well, so they're thinking of quote unquote simple versions of traditional fantasy games, while others will allow users to make predictions associated with popular TV shows like Survivor or The Bachelorette.
Oh.
Okay.
The first game is Pick and Play Sports. It's a partnership with Whistle Sports, and people get points for correctly predicting the winner of a big game. Points scored by a top player. Blah, blah, blah. So my question to you...
This is just betting.
Well, the cynical marketer in me has battled with Facebook for years over what constitutes gambling that you can advertise on Facebook versus gambling that you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
So my mind immediately goes to, how are they going to try to monetize this, and how does that change potentially their own advertising policy? Because most of their money now comes from advertising. 8-10 years ago, they made a lot of money off of like in-game purchases and revenue splits with the Zyngas of the world, right? But the most recent thing I can find is that 98% of quarterly revenue comes from ads.
Which makes sense.
It makes total sense. But it also tells me that they're not happy that they're not making any money off of games anymore, and they think that this is a way to do that. So,
I mean,
do people get to like purchase points? Is this like a different version of like the online poker games where you're not gambling real money because you bought points that convert from money to points? Like,
kind of sounds like it.
What are we doing here?
Like, especially when like fantasy sports already kind of seems like betting to me, but you could argue that it's strategy. You don't have to put money into it, and it could be like a strategy game. But like,
the argument currently is it's classified as a game of skill for some people.
Yeah, because you do have to. But I could see it's a game, right? Like, it's not necessarily a bet, but like something like player X scores X Y points. Mm-hmm. That is literally a Vegas line. Mm-hmm. like you can't tell me that that's not just gambling. That's not fantasy prediction or anything. That's not like projection or anything. It's just like you're just making a bet. Like I don't see where the skill is involved anymore.
But if you're making a bet and the only thing that you can win is non-monetary points.
Oh yeah, okay, no. I understand they might have rules to get away
legally,
from, but
it's fine. You've basically just created your own like set of fiat tokens.
Yeah.
So then is this a way that they just find more people to service ads to, or are they do they try to monetize the game in some way?
It's kind of both, right? Because like people will spend money on the game in whatever way. Right?
But would you honestly make an in-game purchase on a Facebook game?
No, but I wouldn't have done that 10 years ago either, and there were plenty of people who did. So
that's fair.
And there are people and if this is marketed in a way where they don't say it's gambling, but everyone knows it's gambling, like they will get people who don't care about games but care about gambling to play the game.
If this turns into gambling, it also is going to be governed by the same set of rules that govern gambling on a national level.
Well, I mean, that's what they had.
Remember that gambling federally is still illegal.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep it. I mean, like you said, they're going to have to keep gamifying it in a way where, like you buy points, and if you choose to spend microtransactions, real money, you don't have to do that. Yeah. Maybe they give you a way to earn maybe you start with 100 points, and they're like, okay, like theoretically, that 100 points, you make the right bets, you don't ever have to pay to play the game. Like, I don't know how it works, but like, it will hook people like that.
Yep.
I feel like, and it serves as a dual. So it's not like this can't be used for advertising. Like, okay, we offer these fantasy games for different
definitely is used
shows and stuff. Like, well, how do we pick the show? How does The Bachelorette get picked? Bachelorette probably gave us a bunch of money to do that.
Or while you wait for the game to load, hey, here's a quick 20-second video ad. Boom.
Yeah, like you're hitting them on all levels. So
yeah.
I feel like I don't know like how much money they're gonna have to pour into for research and development for this, but I can see where they think like seems like it'll just fit into our current money making model. You know.
Well, I think the thing that makes this the most interesting to me is that you're targeting people who don't fit like traditional wagering demographics, right?
Yeah.
So people who watch there's going to be a subset of people who watch anything that like gambling for the sake of liking gambling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we're painting in broad strokes, the majority of people who are going to watch The Bachelorette are probably not going to go down to the Westgate Superbook on a weekend and put like a 5-line parlay on a bunch of NFL games.
No.
So like those are two very, very different target audiences.
Yeah. But the core idea is that both those target audiences like talking about the thing they're interested in, and they like being right about the thing they're interested in, right? The Bachelor and the Bachelorette shows form teams, essentially, with people saying, like, this is the contestant that I like and I think is going to win or whatever. And so, and you know, those fandoms, they feel very strongly about the person they pick. So, like, you know, like, yeah, just as strongly as X sports fan feels about his city's team or her city's team, the Bachelorette person watching, like, they feel very strongly about Jenny is the best for this season's iteration of The Bachelor or whatever. I don't know. But, you know, like, so I agree, you're right. They've decided we need to find people who are very different than the normal gambling crowd, but are very, like, have that same core idea of wanting to be right about something. Because that's how you get people to bet. You know, you think you're right, but put the money or the points where your mouth is.
Where your mouth is. I think, too, though, that this is also interesting because it's coming at a time where, again, demographically speaking in broad strokes, less younger people are interested in Facebook anymore, right? You're seeing more people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s who are staying on the platform longer, whereas people in our demographic spend more time on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Is this a way for them to try to eat away at some of the market share that they've lost and get it back? Maybe. I'm sure
younger
in a
people are
perfect
probably
world it is. Whether or not it's going to succeed, obviously, is the question. So then, last question on this, because I could talk fantasy sports and gambling all day. Is this, like, from a revenue perspective, because we're talking about this in the context of Facebook as a publicly traded company, is this a gimmick, or is this really annoyingly a piece of genius that means we can't get rid of Mark Zuckerberg yet again?
I don't know if it's a piece of genius that's going to save Facebook's entire model and reputation, but I think it's a good idea. Like I said, it seems to me like it has a lot of ways to tie into what they do already. Not like they lack the tech and server power to host an online gambling or online game, whatever they want to call it. And, like, I think, you know, despite the fact that Facebook clearly has a dying user base, it's still huge enough where those will want to be part of Facebook's game if they're going to make one. Like, The Bachelor and Bachelorette are probably just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure other shows or, you know, type of events will be like, hey, especially if Facebook is like, for like a live event, if Facebook is like, we will host the stream for the live event and, like, we'll like have like a broadcast for it essentially, and we'll play the game during the broadcast like that.
I'm sure that's something they're talking about doing.
Yeah, so like I would definitely say I think it's a good idea. So yes, I guess potentially annoying, but you know, I guess that's what they pay. Facebook pays a big bucks to make that.
Kyle, what do you think? A gimmick or secretly genius?
I mean,
Kyle's
I think
in the middle. Good idea.
I would probably not say good idea, but I would say it's probably a gimmick. I mean, I think it's gonna, like, it targeting those specific people, like gamifying just random things. Yeah, I mean, I can see that, like, you know, bringing in people who are not, like, conventional, like, gamblers or whatever, or people who would not traditionally, like, bet on something like that. So I guess maybe if you got people with, like, addictive personalities, you can really get them in on that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be like it'll bring in like some of the market, but I don't know if it's gonna fetch everyone. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I must admit, I think this is a really damn good idea.
Oh.
So, I am unsure how it's going to be adopted because like the user interface and the offerings on there will ultimately dictate whether it succeeds or fails. But I do think that they're onto something because the social dialogue, to Kyle's point, around a lot of these shared interests is a very potent form of like social interaction. So, as much as I hate to say it, we'll see. But I would not be shocked if this does very well.
I can see people dismissing it as gimmicky. Like, I don't think Kyle doesn't have a point, but I just think that, especially because like sports betting is becoming just more in general publicly accepted now.
Yeah.
Like states are pushing to legalize betting and online betting and gambling. So
Yeah.
I feel like they might be able to just kind of catch that wave, even if they're not directly, in
Yeah,
there.
I mean, the trick
People
there
will
is
just
going to
be
be that
interested
it's
in the idea.
jurisdictional, right? What you can
Yeah,
do online
I mean, like-
gambling in New Jersey is not the same as what you can do here, and so on and so on.
Yeah, I'm wondering if like if there'll be a similar appeal where like at the start of COVID, you saw people got interested in stocks and cryptocurrency mostly because they knew someone who already was doing it, and that person
Yeah.
started making money and they had time or whatever. So I'm wondering if if I'm not interested in gambling myself, but sports betting becomes legal, and I have a friend who makes money doing sports betting all of a sudden, it seems to be turning out pretty well for them, and then Facebook starts offering something similar for something I'm interested in, might be more inclined to at least try it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest obstacle to me, ironically, in the whole idea is that Facebook is the one pushing it forward. That would be the hardest thing for me to get past. Like, do I want to give Facebook my money and play a game on Facebook and my payment info and all that stuff, and tracking my betting habits essentially? Like, that's a lot of personal analysis going on.
It's a lot of personal information to give up, but they probably have most of it already anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I signed up for Facebook when I was in high school, so it's all out there. Middle school, high school, whatever that was.
They have it all anyway. I did want to spend some time this week following up. It's been a while since we've gotten to talk about outer space.
Ooh.
I wanted to follow up on our scintillating analysis of Virgin Galactic and all things publicly traded in outer space because they just got grounded by the FAA.
Really?
Yes. So this came out on Thursday or Friday. It's relatively recently.
Okay.
That they veered out of the approved flight zone, and that there may or may not have been mechanical warning lights that they ignored the guidance of and took different protocols into play instead. So all of this is hush-hush. Virgin Galactic, of course, is like, they did exactly what they were trained to do, leave us alone. The FAA is like, when we agree on a flight plan, we agree on a flight plan. So you're going to submit to us an incident report, and you're not going to do a damn thing until we get to look at it and tell you what you're going to do. Yeah. So, I'm not an aviation savvy person, so I don't know what is included in the flight plan or not. But I think that this underscores all of the risk that the three of us were collectively warning people about when we talked about this last time, right?
Yes.
I don't think that the risk of this happening again, right? If they open up to the recreational space traveler, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the stock and the price that it's currently at is going to withstand things like this particularly well.
Yeah, I can see that.
So you get grounded, boom, you automatically, it's what happened with COVID to a lot of other people, right? You get grounded by the FAA, all of a sudden you're making zero money.
Yep.
Businesses don't survive making zero money very well. So this to me is just another warning of stay the hell away from these things. But I mean, I'm sure there are going to be people out there that are going to see this as a buy the dip opportunity, which to me is insane. But I mean, What do we think? How cheap would it have to get, knowing that this type of risk is now inherent in the operation, for you to be interested in buying this? $5, $10? Like, what are we talking here?
It's currently at 24.28.
Okay, so it was up
What
to
did
like
it-
47 or 50 right after the went into
Yeah,
outer space.
50. It was like 50. I remember talking about it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's taking
honestly,
a
it's
massive
not.
hit.
It's not super hot. The idea that the government is just going to shut you down at any time is not great. I mean, like, we all knew that could happen, but I guess the fact that you do things that causes that to happen, like on your inaugural flight, so you're 1 for 1 in terms of getting penalized.
Yeah, not to mention that your boss is on.
Yeah, like, also, like, so he was there, definitely aware of the fact that you guys were not doing the thing.
Well, I don't know that he was aware of it, because the pilots are in the cockpit and they're all floating around in the back seat, right? But
that's true. Okay, but I guess, like, also, like, this is like, so the FAA is saying, like, this is like dangerous, right? Because you left the expected flight zone. You could have, ran into trouble or gone to someone else's flight zone. That could have been awful. And then also, like, they ignored some sort of warning light. So, like, this is also at its heart a safety issue, right? Like, does that inspire a lot of confidence as
well, so on the one hand, I think it could,
customer?
because the pilots are well trained enough to continue a successful flight. On the other hand, we don't know enough about what the safety lights were or were not for.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, yeah, I guess, like, you could be like, okay, yeah, the pilots are skilled because they overcame something that indicated that there was trouble, right? We don't know what level of trouble. And, like, theoretically, if it was super dangerous, that just means the pilots were super good. But, like, it doesn't, like, just because I know that the pilot one time pulled off a 1% successful chance, like, maneuver doesn't really make me super confident in getting back into that same flight. Well,
and so I think it's a question too of, like, with the warning lights. Are they warning lights that have to do with mechanical components of the actual ship, or are they warning lights that have to do with the trajectory the aircraft is on? Right? Because those are two different things.
Right.
I would assume it was probably the second one, right? It was probably warning lights indicating that they were probably not flying on course, right? Because if they went off course, you
would think, right? Okay.
Like, like, I assume there's a nav computer of some kind that is like, hey, like, you told me we're gonna go this way, and we're going this way. So, like,
is this like a Hudson, like, Sully type scenario though? Like, was there a failure, and then he was like, "Oh, I gotta do this." Like,
I don't think we know enough yet. Is the problem?
I see. Yeah, like, that could have been like, he could have been like, well, we only left the flight path because the warning light meant I had to leave the flight path, or like I had to do something, and
yeah.
Well, I guess that's why the FAA grounds you, right? They do the air investigate. They're saying you just can't fly until we decide you're wrong or right. But it's not great. Like Jordan says, it's not great to not be making money and also not know when it's going to end, because the investigation is ongoing, right? Until they decide they have all the information.
Well, I mean, I guess.
And if you're trying to, and if they think you're wrong and you're trying to prove your case, arguing actually just drags out you being grounded longer, even if you end up winning the case.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, I guess.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know that I could say that. Well, I mean, it probably does impact their stock price. Yeah, it's already dropped, like, hugely, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's effectively cut itself in half in the last, like, month and a half.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess. Okay, well, that's concerning too, because, like, well, one, it's like a passenger. Like, that's all of Virgin Galactic's things, right? It's like passenger flights to space. It's not like, it's not SpaceX where, like, hey, we're launching satellites and stuff, and we also carry people. It's purely just people transport, right? Yeah, that's kind of concerning, because, like, sure, if a satellite goes up, I mean, so with, like, most, like, rocket launches, like, if satellite goes up, the rocket goes off or veers off course, they blow it up.
Yeah.
But you got tons of
people on board, though.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. Challenger stands out in American minds for a reason.
Yeah.
You do not want that happening.
No. Especially an intentional one, like, hey, that was going to launch into, like, Cuba or something. Like, if the flight path took it over Cuba, like, oh, we blew it up, and now we're shattering.
Oh yeah, like another government just is like, well, you just launched a rocket over us.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you didn't. I don't know. It was Virgin Galactic's fifth
Yeah.
passenger. Like all I saw was a rocket from a country that I don't have great relations with headed towards me.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. That's not really a great look, I guess.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I guess how does that work? Like, okay, so the FAA grounded Virgin Galactic.
Correct.
Could a governing entity from another, like a non-U.S. governing entity, do the same thing to Virgin Galactic?
Well, so here's the thing though with this.
Like, how does that work? How does who regulates?
Because of the way that they launch these. By the time you are like, because remember, Virgin Galactic, the rocket goes up, and then like the passenger vessel detaches and then does its own thing.
Right.
Mhm.
So by the time the passenger vessel detaches, my assumption, again, as somebody who knows very little about outer space or how any of this works, is that you're in what's generally accepted as international airspace.
Right.
Okay, yeah, you're in
So
the internet. You're in the.
If
No
something
one
like
owns.
that happens in another country's airspace, yes, that's a massive problem, but that's probably not the only problem you have if you're that low to the ground, right?
That's true.
You're launching out of New Mexico, which means you're going straight up from U.S. airspace into international airspace before anything is going on.
Yeah.
So in theory, you're fine. If something goes horribly wrong, though, and you do end up in the airspace of another country, you're assuming that Virgin Galactic is going to get somebody on the phone and say, hey, please don't blow this airship to smithereens. There are people on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like the pilot can somehow communicate with the people who are about to blow him to smithereens.
You're hoping that some of those things are in place. But I mean, again, I think it just further underscores that there's a lot of risk here. And it sounds bad, but like, if somebody dies on one of these, does the stock
you're talking.
does it go to
dead.
$1? It's not going to go to 0 because I don't think that it's really mathematically it's not really possible. But like,
yeah, like
nobody wants to be holding the bag on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the problem is, let's be real. One is going to happen. I think whichever company has it happen to them first is going to have a shitstorm to deal with. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I honestly think it'll happen to every company. There's no way you can't convince me that it won't. But, like, the company it happens to first will look really bad, I feel like. Because, like, after it happens once, like, a bunch of safety regulations will get put into place. All this, all this legislation will come in about, like, how launches work and inspections and all this. Like, it'll be all mandated by the government. And so, like, future failures won't seem as big of a deal because we'll be like, those were just, it was just, like, a quote-unquote act of God almost at that point, right? Like, we put in a lot of time, money, and effort into making it as safe as possible, and sometimes things just happen. But the first time that it happens, something's going to come out where they're going to be like, they ignored something, or like a safety inspection was just like blatantly like
somebody cut
pushed under
a
the
corner
rug, or they decided to buy from a different manufacturer with lower quality standards. Something will come out, and everyone will be like, "Wow, you let X people die." Like, you let X people die. Like, no matter what it is, they'll just be like, it's your fault. And that will just be like, how do you bounce back from that, honestly? Like, it will, if it happens to Virgin Galactic with all of this already going on, they're due. Like, if it happened to SpaceX right now, I don't know how you would recover from that. And SpaceX has a very, it's the most publicly accepted out of all three companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know how that would work, to be honest. Especially if it's a passenger flight. If it was like
commercial, is different because things can be replaced, people cannot, right?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what this boils down to, is that there are passengers involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it's only company employees, like,
that's still really bad, though.
It's bad.
That's really bad, but it's better than having a passenger on it.
Yeah,
right? Like,
passenger.
Like, astronauts were bad. The fact that there was a teacher on board, the one that caught fire,
astronauts, like, this has already happened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Virgin Galactic has had test staff die.
Oh. Okay, I didn't know that.
But, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, with employees, like, you can get, like, it's bad publicity, but, like, like, you could argue that, like, well, we're testing it. These people work for us. They accept
There's
the
an
risk,
inherent assumption
right?
of risk, right?
Yeah, like, like, it's not released to the public because things like this could happen. But to get it to that point, like, we have to accept risk, right? You could hand wave that. No one will like it, but you could hand wave that. But as soon as the passenger dies, someone who paid you money to get on this thing, like, that's not good. That's
Even with the assumed risk, like, hey, I'm paying to get on a like a controlled explosive, but still, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, if someone gets on a roller coaster and they die, that's bad publicity for the amusement park.
Yeah,
this will be worse.
Like, I'm paying you under the assumption that yes, it is dangerous, but you've tested it thoroughly.
Yeah, the reason I'm paying you the money is because you've figured it out, right? Like, I'm not launching a rocket in my backyard because that's dumb. I'm paying you my massive $1 million ticket or whatever it was
$250,000 ticket.
Yeah, you guys have smart people who have figured this out, right?
Okay, so general consensus, it sounds like we all still think that these as publicly traded entities is a very bad idea. Please be careful.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I guess I get why they do it early, but, like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be actually people that are early adopters of stuff, but
yeah, it just seems like to me until I see one, like, actually functioning in the form of taking people to space, like, it's hard for me to get on. Like, there's just so much that can go wrong before that point.
Yeah.
Like,
bottom line, we're going to go early adopt something else. This is just not going to be it for us.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, moving on to a slightly less morbid topic, I suppose. I don't know if you saw this week, but GM and Ford have both suspended automobile manufacturing at several large North American plants because they can't get stuff.
Yeah.
So, we're going to keep this real simple. Kyle, as you and I have already mentioned, we're trying to figure out when do we unload Tesla. Are we at a point, because they're saying now this is going to be until like 2020, late 2022, early 2023.
Jeez.
I've yet to really see how prices and stuff have responded because this happened like yesterday. Or the day before, right? It's extremely recent. Is this a time where you just stay away from auto manufacturing in general? Like, you're talking almost another full calendar year at minimum where you have severe supply chain disruptions.
Yeah.
Like, the factory closures, I think, are only going to be for a couple weeks. But, like, what that does to finished inventory is still really, really pronounced.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know where it was from, but I saw this article talking about, like, I think Ford has, like, massive lots of, like, F-150s and all the other, like, fully assembled vehicles. They're just waiting on the ECU, like, for, like, microchips to put the ECU in.
Okay.
And, like, they just can't get those. So it's like, I mean, I guess we're already seeing effects of that. Like, we've already been seeing that. But then, like, you know, now their storage, their, like, overflow lots are just so full that it's like, hey, dude, we have nowhere to put these anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to me.
Yeah, I do think I'm a little bit wary of the auto industry right now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, like, in a month,
especially with a company like
Ford has gone from 1380 to 1289.
Yeah, especially for a company like Ford and GM, where they're like, I don't even know, like, what their long term, like, are they going to switch to EV?
Are they going GM has announced their EV plans. Ford, I think, outside of the Mach-E, have been a little bit more hush hush.
Yeah. So, like, that's, like, another worry for me. I guess, like, not only are you not going to be making money in your traditional way, while it still has, you know, value to society, because people still want gas cars right now. Like, I don't know if people want gas cars outside of enthusiasts in, like, 20 years. Like, I have no idea how people feel about that. So, like, you know,
it's
like...
not like the chip shortage can necessarily accelerate the development of certain components of an EV, right?
Yeah, like
you could perfect battery technology if you have a bunch of people sitting around on their hands, right? But that's assuming that they have expertise. It's assuming that they already work for you, doing all this other stuff.
Yeah, I saw.
But those cars take chips too.
I don't think GM wants to make batteries, though. I think GM said they were going to buy, like, Korean batteries or something like that.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, even in an ideal scenario, it's not likely that this is going to accelerate the development of any type of EV fleet for pretty much anybody, is my point.
Yeah. So, it worries me because, like, you're not making money in the way that you kind of established that you can make money. You don't have money for research and development into the new way that you probably need to transition into.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for the next year, you're just going to be bleeding a lot of money. Yeah. And you're also going to be throwing away your stock, like Kyle said. So you have your 2020 fleet, probably 70% of it is trash now. You have your 2021 fleet. You only were able to make 30% of it because you weren't able to get supplies. And on top of that, out of that 30%, you barely sold any of it because people don't want to buy them right now. Like,
I mean, people do want to buy them is the thing. That's why the prices are so damn high. Is because people want them. But it's this really weird asynchronous point where people want things, you can't make them, price goes way up, but then to the point you just made, the transitioning between the model years really puts everybody in a dicey spot.
Yeah.
Because the customer's going to expect a discount.
Yep.
Can the auto manufacturer give it to them? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, like
because the dealer still has to make money on this too, right? Don't forget that there's dealer economics at play.
Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, because like normally, yeah, if I buy last year's or X year's model, it's not this year's. Like like well, the new one is newer, so I shouldn't have to pay the new price for the old one. But if I didn't get to sell any of the old ones, and I don't really have any of the new ones either, like because I couldn't get any to even send to my dealership because Ford didn't have enough or whatever. Like no, I got the 2020 model. You could pay the 2020 price for the 2020 model. That's what we got going.
Yeah, and I just don't like. There's a lot. I don't know. There's just like literally bleeding a lot of money right now, and even still, like they have to store the vehicles. And then they have to wait for the ships to come in. And then they got to transfer them to the dealership.
Then they get stuck at the port for like 3 days. Then they get stuck at the truck stop for a couple days. Like, everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's just like, I don't know what the margin is on like new vehicles, but...
It was usually not high. Isn't the margin on new vehicles usually like between 10 and 20%?
Yeah,
it's supposed to be crappy, right? They want you to finance it and then make money off.
That's how they make the money,
right?
That's why dealerships...
Yeah, go ahead.
Like dealerships now are like their own banks. They're like, do the financing through us. Don't go through your bank.
Yeah. They're like they want to set you up with the loan for you.
Yeah.
So new
like
vehicles
coming into
is between 8 and 13%. So it's already fairly small compared to other things.
So it's like lucky if they even break even on them.
Well, to your point, it's the financing. So the fact that the price goes up is good for that business model.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's enough when you're dealing with such an inventory shortage. Like I don't think you can counteract that enough.
No way.
Not without making your price untenable.
Extreme, yeah.
Like we'll have a 40% interest rate.
Well, that's the thing. Interest rates right now are low. Like even for cars and things, interest rates are low compared to historics, right? So you don't even have the pricing support necessarily to justify the interest. You just have the principal on the loan, like the amount you are giving people. Like over X number of years is where you have to make all that back.
Yeah. Do we see that as a do we see this as like a big change in like how cars are sold now though? Like are we gonna see like dealers and whatever try to flip it? We're like, all right, we're just gonna jack the list price up and try to make a margin on that.
So they just
like try to recover some margin or whatever.
I'm not sure.
They just say we won't even try financing anymore. We're just gonna make the profit margin.
Or they say, hey, you want a car that badly? We don't have that many cars. If you want to buy this thing, it's gonna be like a $60,000 car when it's normally $30,000. And then you also got to finance it, so we're just going to, put it in, we're just going to
that was my point from earlier, right?
Yeah.
4% interest on a $30,000 car is very different than 4% interest on a $70,000 car.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they're going to have to do if interest rates stay low enough.
Yeah.
Start double dipping. You say, okay, we'll make the price higher. Then you can't afford to pay it, so you're more likely to need a loan too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I have zero interest in buying a $70,000 car ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Like, I don't make that kind of money.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I don't know where they're gonna get there. I don't know, make it out of this alive, basically.
Yeah,
they
I mean,
got-
it's another one. I hate to be such a downer this week, but, like, outer space stuff, not good. This, not good. Like, I wouldn't be rushing out to buy auto stock right now either. So.
Yeah.
Of course, if you have it, again, in real life, you could tax loss harvest it and just move on if you wanted to. But this competition affords no such luxury because all the money is fake. So.
And we're going to
Speaking
catch
of
that
things
at the end of the
are
year
ridiculously
anyway.
expensive, though. Houses. We've talked about this before, too. And I saw an interesting article. I want to say it was out of like a newspaper in Florida.
Mhm.
So, already interesting because it's a newspaper in Florida. But
Nice.
basically, they were chronicling the story of a set of homebuyers who were waiting for the market to crash because they think it's the only way they're ever going to be able to buy something.
Ooh.
Fair point. I was in the same boat 3 years ago.
Mhm.
My wife and I were trying to figure out, do we want to buy a house or not? I was like, you know what? Why don't we just wait for it to crash? Like, I'm glad we didn't. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I was very incorrect on that one. But, like, it's hard because on the one hand, you have to feel like some type of correction is coming.
Yeah.
On the other hand, everybody who's of the age who is trying to figure out how on earth do I afford to buy a house is expecting something like 2008. And that's not... I don't want to say it's not possible.
Yeah, I
It's
think
highly unlikely because of the number of rules they put in place the last time that happened.
Mm.
So,
the problem is, yeah, like people expect like a crash or correction, and like eventually, yeah, there probably will be one. But if it goes up like high enough before then, like the correction will go back to a point that you will still think is very high. Like, right? Like if you
correcting
think
from record heights does not necessarily mean it's going to correct
Yeah.
to a point where the average person finds it accessible.
Right.
Yeah, like let's say your budget is like $500,000, and like all the houses right now seem to be $600,000, and you're like, oh wait, and it goes up to $2 million before finally correcting, and it corrects back to $700,000.
Like, nice.
At no point were you able to buy a house anymore. Like that, just buying it at $600K would have been your best option, even if you had, even if that's more than you wanted to spend or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Isn't
that's
that wild?
a tough reality of it might, like that's.
Oh.
It's the question that I personally am asking myself. I know a lot of my friends are asking themselves, like, is it worth waiting if
Huh?
if the pay, or like maybe I just some of my friends are like I just kind of I don't want to own a house. No matter how much money I have, I'm not going to own a house. They just kind of decided like that's it's going to be their MO, and I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I think renting is going to be the only option for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with renting. But we've also seen in the last year, as soon as the eviction moratorium ended, right, what happened to rent? Some people's rent went up like $600 in a month.
Yeah.
Like, that's not accessible either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have people who pay in rent more than my house. Like, my house payment is less than some people's rent. That, to me, is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
like, if you're
insane.
renting a penthouse, okay, that's fine. But if you're renting, like, a 2-bedroom apartment...
You probably shouldn't have something that's worse than a mortgage.
I don't know, man. That would just be hard for me to swallow.
It's a tough one to swallow, right? Yeah, like, I don't know, what, is this like a massive 2-bedroom apartment in like downtown Manhattan or something? Like, okay.
Well, but see, the other thing, and I think you were kind of alluding to it earlier, even if the market corrects, because the market has been so competitive, unless the thing that forces the market to correct also wipes out a bunch of people's cash reserves,
yeah, like,
people are immediately going to pour money back into the housing market because it's cheaper. So the only way it stays cheaper for a long time is if a lot of people lose a shitload of money.
Yeah, a lot of people have to get poor, and you have to be lucky, and not be poor.
And you have to be lucky to not be one of them.
Yeah, you have to have all your money in cash for some ungodly reason, and like have it all in hand, and be like, all right, like,
Yeah, so I have a hard time imagining a scenario where this goes the way that is going to make it accessible for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree that I do hear people saying they want to wait, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I understand like the concept because like I don't want to buy a house at the prices right now either.
No, hell no.
I'm really, for me, it's like I've kind of decided I should buy one now, or I should just not or I should just not worry about buying one until I'm either in a much better financial situation and I'm like, oh, I can afford to buy what I want, or
yeah,
or like like something critical happens, I guess. And I'm like, I need housing all of a sudden, I guess. Like, for whatever reason, I need to own property. Like, it's not a thing in my life right now. Like, maybe if I had different stuff going on, if I was trying to grow a family, like, probably a much more pressing need on my mind to have, stable place of living long term for, long term growth and development. But that's not super important right now, so it's kind of like...
Yeah. Well, and I feel like a lot of the places, too, that people used to look for value don't exist anymore. Like, I saw this article, and so I got bored, and out of nothing more than curiosity, I looked at houses in Alaska.
Mm.
Hmm.
Do you know what the average price of a home in Alaska is right now?
No.
Is it high or low?
I'm guessing it's high.
Probably higher than you think.
Okay.
Okay, how much land does the average home in Alaska get, though? Like acreage?
Well, so, okay, according to Zillow, the average value of a house in Alaska is $301,000.
Wow.
Okay.
The average of the houses that I was looking at, just like, they're in a development somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Range from as low as $295 and as high as $700.
Shit.
Well, so you were looking at a development. I feel like that.
No, I was just looking at everything. Like, show me like the average American house. $295, $700,000.
Okay.
Like that's.
I mean, I was thinking like Alaska. It might also be like location is super important. Like, are you by a town? Are you by yourself in the Siberian wilderness?
Like, normal.
Yeah, because I was like, I mean, like that might actually be like a huge thing. Like in Alaska, to be honest, like how far away is the nearest city to your house?
Yeah, it's bonkers. Like I don't know where people are supposed to find value anymore. It's like not to pick on Alaska, because I understand that there are certain restraints that make things in Alaska more expensive than a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you can't find value at like the literal ends of the earth,
I mean, didn't they used to pay you to live in Alaska? So
they still do.
Like, yeah, like that's
you still get a government subsidy to live in Alaska.
Yeah, nothing against Alaska. It just seems like not a lot of people want to live there. Yeah.
No, but that's my point.
To your point.
If you can't find value in a place that a lot of people don't want to live to begin with, where are you supposed to go?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts from anybody?
No, I don't think so for me. Not really.
No.
No, not gonna go back.
Not a super uplifting episode. No, not right now.
Maybe like it would be interesting as like a vacation home, but I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean none of us do, right? That's the thing. Alrighty then. Well, Kyle, sorry you got last in the month of August, but better luck next time. And looks like so far we're off to a bit of a slower start.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll see where we are in a week's time. Who knows?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Alright, good luck everybody.
Yeah, see you guys.
Later.